Hello everybody, Terrence, Popp here, redonkulous.com, and one of the main reasons why I'm speaking to you tonight is I was asked to put together a presentation for ICMI 2020. Now, unfortunately, this has to be a video presentation due to the sweet and sour sniffles and the manufactured hysteria around said sniffles have made coming together and meeting in person impossible. And I was asked to come up with this presentation, and I kicked it around, and I'm gonna call it this: How Men Fornicate Themselves. All right, now, for those of you out there who don't know me, I'm a 33-year veteran from the United States Army. While I was in the Army, I served as an Infantry Soldier, Airborne Paratrooper, Airborne Ranger, Green Beret, and then when I got too old and slow, I moved over and worked in civil affairs and intelligence, which is an oxymoron for the military, but I still did it. And in that time, I have seen some crazy shit. And a lot of it went nowhere good. And in the worst cases, it wound up in suicide. Now, it's all fun and games, you know. Everyone laughs at the stories and so forth, and until you got to do a health and welfare and cut a guy down and hung himself, or somebody who painted the wall with their brains, and then you got to involve mortuary affairs. People write letters. It's a whole sad story. So what I'm trying to do here is keep you all out there from putting a gun in your mouth and doing some stupid shit, okay, and taking a permanent solution for a temporary problem. And the main way you can do this are these three things, all right? Picking your significant other or whatever based on looks alone. 2, ignoring the crazy and disregarding history. All right, now, I'm not here to preach at you or lecture at you, because I'm going to be honest. A lot of the stuff I'm going to talk about, I did it myself. And the longer I talk, the more sense this all is going to make. All right, so let's talk about picking on looks. All right, now listen. All right, I'm just going to call this tits and ass. All right, now, I cannot tell you how many times in 33 years I had soldiers stand in front of my desk, look me in the face, and say, "Oh, sir, I'm getting married on Friday, and, what do you think?" I'm like, "Oh, so we're getting married, are we? How old are you?" It's usually, 19, 20, because that's a good age to make crazy hormone-driven decisions. So I'd be like, one of my first questions would be like, "So, where did you meet her?" And about 60% of the time, it is someplace called Peepers or Eccentrics, and I may or may not get a stage name like Portia or Bubbles or some shit like that. And it always goes like this. I literally stand up and I'm like, "Hey, just excuse me, just a second." And I try not to laugh because I know exactly where this script is going for this horrible play that's about to be written for this young soldier's life. And I'll, make a few more inquiries, and I always get the, well, she loves me, or she's different. Or this, I love this one. She's good people. Okay. So you're going to marry this lady that you met at the Shake It Club. All right. Or they met him at the meat market on Post. And, that's not quite as bad, but it's a very close second. Because a lot of those women hanging out there, they're there for one thing and one thing only. It's the primary thing is they're there for cock. And a lot of times, they find it. Oh my God. So, these soldiers, I can't stop them from getting married. I can't, that's just not the way it works. They're over 18. They can make rational adult decisions, even though I highly advise them not to do it. But more often than not, it happens anyway. And every single time they tell me they're going to get married, I reach into the desk, I pull out the allotment forms, and I tell them, we are going to do an allotment and we're going to take $100 a month out of your pay. And they look at me and they're like, whoa, why do I need to do that, Sean? I look right at them, I'm like, well, because you're getting a head start on funding your divorce. That never goes over well. I never had one soldier take me up on it in the beginning. But 6 to 18 months later, same soldier winds up in front of my desk, telling me, I need to move back in the barracks because it's just not working out. I think we're going to get divorced. Now, if I was a better person, I wouldn't rub their nose in it and say, I told you so, but every single time I look them in the face and I tell them, hey, dummy, I told you so. And then we pull out the allotment form and we change their bank to another bank. And it's just a whole stack of paperwork and nightmares to unfuck that worm pile that's going on. I'm a tits and ass man myself. I am a 10-mile-an-hour front and rear bumper kind of guy. I like the collisions, and I like the bumpers, and, preferably 8 to 12-mile-an-hour bumpers work for me. Some guys like 5-mile-an-hour bumpers, some 3-mile-an-hour bumpers. It doesn't really work for me, but, it is what it is. And I'm a sucker for a redhead, all right? And a close second to that is, a Latino chick. I don't know what it is about it. It just does it for me. Now, my ex-wife, 10 mile an hour, front and back bumper, and a redhead, green eyes, the whole deal. And, and I didn't base it strictly on looks. I actually had a pretty significant criteria in regards to the selection of my former wife, tormentor of my existence. For instance, I had to make sure her parents were still married. Any siblings she had were from the same dude. She was a college graduate. And, basically was not crazy and so forth. And I thought I was doing everything right. Didn't call her my girlfriend for 2 years. I lived with her for about 1.5 years before I even married her. Because typically, crazy usually takes 90 days to roughly a year to come out. 98% of women out there who are crazy cannot hide it for that long. Well, mine did. So anyway, worst comes to worst, we get married. I start getting the information that I didn't really have while I was dating her, i.e., while she was in college. She was a member of a sorority, which I researched after the divorce and came up with a comedy video called Sorostitutes. Because that's pretty much what they are. It is what it is. I mean, they give themselves a funny name. They all wear the same sweater, live in the same house. Yeah, that's what's going on. All right, so we're going to fast forward it here a little bit. I'm in the National Guard working as a mortgage banker and a professional fighter. And I was doing well at all that stuff. And I get called into my commander's office one day at drill, and he basically looks me in the eye and says, "Hey, get your affairs in order, because we're being mobilized for Iraq." Now, the main push had already gone through. We were the first wave to relieve the active duty people in like the end of 2003. So long story short, I get caught in a couple rocket attacks. I survive a couple sniper attacks. And I get blown up by a roadside bomb. And to be honest with you, I really had no business walking away from that because the explosive that was used was somewhere between 60 and 80 kilograms. And it detonated 8 feet off of the front right bumper of the vehicle I was in. And, I know some turbo dork engineers, and, once I told them how much of an explosive it was an RDX type of Russian explosive, that my body absorbed somewhere between 3 and 4 times the explosive force needed to instantly kill a human being. Well, that doesn't happen to you without you getting royally effed up. And I had a significant TBI. I got medevaced from Iraq and had to go through extensive therapy and all other bull crap. And that lasted from roughly the end of 2004 to 2006. And during that time, I discovered some really hard truths about women. You see, gentlemen, you can love women and you can understand women, but you can't do both. And once you understand them, it's a wrap. And I came to discover that no matter how nice I was, or how well of a provider I was, or all of the other positives I thought I had, like I didn't use drugs, I didn't smoke, I didn't really drink, I didn't beat anybody, I didn't have anger issues, but she drew a red line through my name, got divorced, my life was ruined by the courts, and off to the races I went. So, I went off to the races, and there's a joke about this, and it's simply this. Is in today's marriage market, which is collapsing, by the way, and rightfully so, they should change the vows. Like for men, it's the same, you swear this is, better for worse, I do. For women, it should be only if. Like for instance, only if he remains healthy, only if he can keep providing for the household and myself. Only if he's gainfully employed, only if he doesn't go crazy. And there's probably another laundry list of 10 to 15 more only ifs I can add on to that, but I'm trying to keep this whole thing under 50 minutes. I think that would be relatively interesting. All right, now the second one we're going to get to here, the clipboard's a first sergeant thing I always got to do. All right. Ignoring the crazy. All right. I can't tell you how many times I've talked to soldiers, and we've almost always been able to trace back the beginnings of their problems to mental issues that were ignored. Now, I've done this before with a certain Mexican chick that You know, had a great set of bumpers in the front and the back, and, you know, it was great. And why I stuck around is, let's be honest, crazy pussy is the absolute best pussy there is. Until the pussy wears out, and then all you're left with is just crazy. You know, listen, I liked it. You know, she would do cheetah flips on my dick and do all kinds of crazy stuff. It was great until it wasn't. And I mean, I was going over there and I was late. I don't know exactly, kicked off the whole thing. I'm walking up the stairs to, she lived on a second floor in an apartment building. And she comes charging down the stairs with a baseball bat with gutter nails in it. Now, I remember seeing the bat with the nails in the closet, and I asked what that was for, and she looked at me and said, oh, it's for home defense. Well, on that particular day, it wasn't home defense. It was run away or die. I literally went over the balcony, tucked and rolled, and I was I was 21 at the time, perfect shape. I was gone. Never went back. So whatever happened, I should have probably just paid attention to the warning signs. Now, I know you're like, hey, Pop, how do you detect a crazy woman? Well, other than the obvious, you can try something like ask them. More often than not, they'll tell you, either directly or indirectly. Like you say, hey, are you crazy? And they're like, well, I'm not crazy, but some of my friends think I am. Well, they just told you she's crazy. All right. Or they'll just flat out, in a moment of weakness, tell you they're crazy. All right. Or you can look around for head meds. And I suggest you Google some of the names of common head meds, because there's a stat rolling around out there that 25% of women are on some type of head med. And that stat is between 8 and 10 years old. So what does that tell me? Probably more of them are on head meds today, like 1 in 3. So I would say 65 to 75% of them are just undiagnosed. And I came up with a word, it's a catch-all word that covers all of these crazy things women do, or anything going on that's a short circuit in their brain pan, and I call it nar-bipol-bagistic. All right, now we're going to go over some of the symptoms that you should really pay attention to. Number 1. Irrelevant talk. If you're trying to have a conversation and she's talking about shit that just doesn't have any basis in what you're talking to her about, she's in her own dream world, and that's a bad thing. All right. Second one, excessively needy. Now listen, gentlemen, men, we like to be needed and wanted. All right. But whenever your gut tells you that we've gone over the limit, you are now in excessive needy town, and that's not going to go anywhere good. Be aware of that. And the next one is OCD. Now, nothing will touch off a crazy woman with OCD faster than you not realizing she's OCD, and you finger fuck some of her shit where it's not supposed to be. And they will go off on you. If you're lucky, it's just a verbal tongue lashing and you can exit stage right and never come back. But let's face it, knife attacks and hot oil scaldings in the middle of the night are real things. Beware. Next one. All right, this kind of goes with irrelevant talk. But if she's hearing and seeing things that aren't there, you have got somebody that has gone way off the deep end. And if they were to actually harm you and they're in that mental state, they have a pretty good defense of insanity. So don't give them the out and leave. Next one, hoarder. All right, now listen, I watched that show Hoarder, and it is absolutely disgusting. All right, some of the stuff that goes on in there is, I just can't wrap my head around how people allow it to get that bad. Like, if you have to go down the street to take a dump because your bathroom is so full of shit you can't use it, figuratively and literally, that's a problem. All right. Next one. I love this. This one's hilarious. I've actually dated a few women that were like this. And when I tell you, you're gonna think less of me, but that's some good pussy. All right. They think they are an agent of God and or they speak with God. Yeah, that really happened. Don't do that. It's not a good thing. I laugh about it now, but, you know, yeah, I remember the first time that she said that, and I was just like, so, explain this to me. So you are an informer working for St. Michael. Okay, let's jump in bed and work it out. Yeah, that's not good. All right, here's another one here, and this one is really bad. Self-harm. All right, if they like to cut on themselves or do other things like that, and they can harm themselves, it really doesn't take much to turn the dial up to 10 and wind up, catching, 8 to 10 inches of steel, in a not a good place. Because typically, there's only two reasons why steel is in your body. One, you willingly go to a doctor, lay on a table, they knock you out, they put it in your body because you need it. And two, it gets put in there against your will. That's a bad one, and you don't want that to happen. All right. This one here, this one gets people committed. Paranoia. And I'm not talking paranoia from using, Mary Jane, do you wanna? Because a lot of times after they use that, that's what they want to do. I'm just talking about straight up paranoia. A lot of time there's a word attached to that, like schizophrenic, paranoia, or paranoid schizophrenic, depending upon what country you're in and what word they put first. And somebody that has that going on, when you hear about the real bad shit in the news, about people driving their kids in the lakes or setting people on fire or, killing their families. Yeah, that's what we're talking about right there. Paranoid schizophrenia. All right, and I mentioned committed. Now, if you find out she's committed, either she tells you she willingly went in or she was committed against her will, it's... you don't go to the head doctor place for anything good. All right, now, here's a couple of the minor ones that I find, on the creepy side that have a potential of becoming really bad. And one of those is childhood stuff. Now, I'm not talking about you go over to her place and she has like a dollhouse from when she was a kid that her father made for her, onesie, twosies, not a big deal. But, you go back with her and then she puts on like, little kitty stuff and acts like a child and has like all of her toys from when, when she was a child or in her youth. Yeah. I mean, you're just better off just cutting away because that is just all kinds of creepy. And last but not least is an eating disorder. All right. If they have an eating disorder. Now, I hate to stereotype anyone or... Actually, I don't care. If they're bulimic or anemic and they suffer from anemia or whatever and they just don't eat, you don't need that. It's very hard to recover from that. Usually it winds up with all kinds of medical bills down the road and you're just asking yourself to shell out even more cash. Now... if you ignore all this, you do so at your own peril because you can win the following. All right, let's see. False abuse claims, false rape claims, and false pregnancy tests. Yeah, I've had many soldiers have all of those things happen to them. And like the false rape and abuse accusations. Those are really hard to survive in the military. Even back when I was in my 20s, it was still severely frowned upon. And you could survive it, but if there was any like physical evidence whatsoever, you're hammered. Okay, you're done. Let's see, what's the other one? Let's see. Oh yeah, yeah. I had a guy named Jonesy comes into the unit with a pregnancy test stick, and it has the 2 lines on it. He's like, "I'm gonna be a father." I'm like, "Huh, okay." And I highly recommended that he get her to do it again. And lo and behold, he comes in the next day and says, "Oh, she must have had a miscarriage." I'm like, "Nope. That woman's crazy, and she's trying to rope you in, and you don't want any of that." Now, some other cash and prizes for ignoring these things are they get to destroy your shit, and you can't do anything about it. They steal your shit, and you can't do anything about it. It's gone. You shouldn't have took it there to a crazy person's house in the first place. And I've given the same speech to many soldiers who came to my desk whining about said issues. And I said, "Hey, I warned you. I told you so. That shit is gone. Sorry. Save up money. Buy more." Wah. Or you can go to jail. I know quite a few guys who did some time in jail, and I knew they were false accusations, and the prosecutor was overzealous and flushed one career down the drain. Okay, now, if you're out and about on town with said crazy woman and she has a bout of craziness and she says, "Hey, help me, this guy's kicking my ass." Guess who's getting their ass kicked? You are. Because every white knight in the area is going to come to her aid, and you're screwed. Or you can get the grand prize of death. Does that sound good? It doesn't sound good, does it? All right, now we're going to move on to disregarding history. All right. Now, number 1, you need to realize if you're dating or going out and about with a woman who's had multiple partners, you have to realize that she will never belong to you. It's just your turn. All right? Come to terms with that now, because if you don't, you're just setting yourself for heartbreak and misery down the road. Now, I came up with a comedy routine, and I've used this before on some of my soldiers. I call it the dick stacking test. So if you can get her to a hard number, how many cocks, if she doesn't give you one, she says something like, I'm a free spirit, that's 50 cocks, or I didn't really keep track, it's 100 cocks. Whatever number you come up with, you take that number, multiply it by 6, and then divide by 12. And in your head, put a platform at that altitude and mentally push her off of it. If she so much as scrapes her knee or twists her ankle, too many cocks. Don't do it. Don't write a check against it. Hit it, quit it, skedaddle, whatever. But, wrap your weasel. Don't leave any deposits, because that's how you wind up paying child support for 18 to 21 years, depending upon the state you're in. Yeah, not a good thing. All right, next one of a history. You need to try to determine if this particular individual is a serial bad decision maker. All right, does she have a divorce or multiple divorces, a string of breakups? You could easily track one or two of these guys down and interview them and find out exactly what happened. Okay, does she suffer from HCC, which is habitual car crashitis? That's where they smash a car up, 2 to 3 times in a 1-year period. Okay, obviously somebody's making a bad decision there, and it's going to cost you a lot of money, because guess who's going to pay for that? You are. Because in the grand scheme of things, you never loan women money. You just give it to them, and you don't know it yet. So if they tell you, I can't afford to get it fixed, could you loan me $1,800? Well, I highly recommend that you take that out up front in pussy payments. Just saying it right now. All right, now, here's something that a lot of guys that I talked to in the past. Now, I personally, I ran the numbers on my ex-wife and 2 other women that I was actually trying to line up, for the position. And you do a asset check and find out if they have a lot of fucking debt. Okay? And you can find out what they do for a living and how much they make. For instance, one of the ladies that I was dating when I first, was in the window to get married or looking to get married, she had like $87,000 in debt. She had a $38,000 job. She had a mortgage that she could barely afford. Yeah, she was nice and so forth, but I'm not signing my name to that kind of debt. I'm just not doing it. And, she was a little on the crazy side, and I had to bow out. The other one was along the same lines, but had a bankruptcy. Now listen, she had a bankruptcy. She tried to do it on some of her student loans, which is impossible because those are federally insured. And, it was a pretty substantial sum, and a lot of it was credit cards. So she disqualified herself right there on the spot. Because if she could do that with her credit cards, she would have no problem doing it to mine, and I didn't need that aggravation. So, winner, chicken dinner. I got the redhead who stabbed me in the back, but that's neither here nor there. Actually, it's everywhere, but, what are you going to do? Some other, negative history stuff that you need to be aware of is do a criminal check, for God's sake. Okay? If something comes up, like, for instance, they got arrested for drugs, and I'm not talking about marijuana, or prostitution, which a lot of women from the Shake It Club do from time to time. Yeah, you don't want to get involved in that. In fact, I make it a standing rule to never actually get seriously entangled to a woman that worked in the sexual or the sex industry in any way, shape, or form. You just don't do it, because it's not going to go anywhere good. Another thing that her history is abuse. If she says she's been beaten by her father, stepfather, sexually abused, what have you, listen, she might not have it now, but sooner or later, you're going to wind up with number 2. Some kind of crazy shit going on, and it could seriously impact your life in a very negative way. So, don't do it. All right, so those are just some of the stories I have and some of the craziness that I've actually witnessed. And a lot of the mistakes on this list, I did it myself. So please don't judge me. And again, I'm doing this to try to help you guys out there and keep you from doing some stupid-ass bullshit and doing a permanent solution to a temporary problem. Because you will find another job, you will make more money, kids will grow up. Now granted, mine are almost grown up and I've been ripped off out of a lot of time in their childhood, and I will be upset with that forever. Because you don't get a do-over on time, and no amount of money ever bought 1 second of extra time. So that's where I am with that. So don't be me, okay? Pay attention to these 3 things. There are more, but in 50 minutes, I could add in a 4th and talk about it, but it'd really be cutting it close. Now, if you want to see any more of my material, you go to redonkulous.com. Check out the website. It'll take you to my alt tech platforms and my YouTube channel if it's still around. And you can watch the videos for yourself. Okay, I have videos on DTube, BitChute, Brighteon, YouTube. What's the other? I have like 2 or 3 other ones. I don't remember them all. Okay, check them out. And please, if you're an older individual and you've already gone through this and survived, and you have sons, nephews, grandsons that are coming up in the world looking at the craziness that's going on today, and you really don't know how to broach the subject with them, send them my videos. Because guess what? Comedy works, and I'm reprogramming people's thinking meat out there, and they don't even know it, and they're laughing the entire time. Well, that's all I have today for you. Hopefully this is long enough. I'm like over 35 minutes. You guys take it easy. Peace.